Titus Lucretius Carus, more commonly known as Lucretius, was a Roman poet and philosopher, whose life and work left an indelible mark on the intellectual tradition of the ancient world. Born in the early part of the 1st century before Christ, scholars estimate around 99 before Christ, Lucretius wrote his only surviving work, De Rerum Natura, on the nature of things, around 55 before Christ. This philosophical poem, comprised of 6 books, provides a thorough account of the Epicurean worldview, specifically the nature of the universe, human existence, and the pursuit of a tranquil life. Lucretius lived during the final years of the Roman Republic, a period marked by political instability and social unrest. He aligned himself with the teachings of the Greek philosopher Epicurus, who lived in the 3rd century before Christ. Epicurus believed that the purpose of life was to attain happiness, which he defined as a state free from fear and bodily pain. This teaching provided the framework for Lucretius' poem, in which he sought to explain natural phenomena through scientific reasoning rather than relying on superstition or the intervention of the gods. The structure of the poem, On the Nature of Things, is composed of 6 books, written in dactylic hexameter, the traditional meter of epic poetry in ancient Greece and Rome. The poem is divided into 3 main topics: the nature of the physical world, the human soul, and the nature of the gods. The first 2 books describe the atomic theory of the universe, which asserts that everything in existence is composed of tiny, indivisible particles called atoms. This theory, originally proposed by the pre-Socratic philosopher Democritus, is central to the Epicurean understanding of nature. In the 3rd and 4th books, Lucretius turns his attention to the human soul, which he argues is made up of material particles like everything else in the universe. As such, the soul is not immortal, and there is no afterlife. This view is intended to free people from the fear of death and the wrath of the gods, which Lucretius believed were major sources of human anxiety. The 5th and 6th books focus on the development of human civilization and the natural phenomena that govern the world, such as weather, disease, and natural disasters, atomic theory and its significance. One of the most significant contributions of Lucretius' work is his exposition of atomic theory. Although this theory had been developed centuries earlier by Democritus and Leucippus, Lucretius was the first to present it in a systematic, poetic form. According to Lucretius, the universe is composed of atoms and void, and all physical phenomena can be explained by the interactions of these atoms. He explains that atoms are in constant motion, colliding and combining to form the objects and creatures that populate the world. This materialist view of the universe was revolutionary in its rejection of divine intervention. Lucretius argued that the gods did not play an active role in the affairs of humans or the natural world. Instead, the laws of nature, governed by the motion of atoms, were sufficient to explain everything from the formation of the earth to the movement of the stars. This notion of a self-regulating universe laid the groundwork for later scientific developments in physics and cosmology. The nature of the soul. In addition to his discussion of the physical world, Lucretius devotes significant attention to the nature of the human soul. He argues that the soul, like the body, is composed of atoms, and therefore it is not eternal. This view contrasts sharply with the religious beliefs of the time, which held that the soul was immortal and subject to divine judgment after death. By denying the existence of an afterlife, Lucretius sought to free people from the fear of death, which he believed was one of the greatest sources of human suffering. Lucretius emphasizes that death is a natural part of life and should not be feared. He famously argues that when we are, death is not, and when death is, we are not, meaning that once a person dies, they cease to exist and are incapable of feeling pain or suffering. Therefore, the fear of death is irrational and should not dictate how people live their lives. This Epicurean philosophy encouraged individuals to focus on achieving tranquility in this life rather than worrying about what might happen after death, the gods and religion. Throughout On the Nature of Things, Lucretius is highly critical of religion and the belief in divine intervention. He contends that the gods, if they exist, live in perfect tranquility and have no interest in the affairs of humans. The belief that the gods control the natural world, he argues, is based on ignorance and fear. By promoting a scientific understanding of nature, Lucretius hopes to dispel these fears and liberate people from the psychological burden of religious superstition. One of the most striking passages in the poem describes the sacrifice of Iphigenia, the daughter of Agamemnon, who was killed to appease the goddess Artemis in the mythological account of the Trojan War. Lucretius uses this story to illustrate the dangers of religious fanaticism and the lengths to which people will go in their attempt to curry favor with the gods. For Lucretius, the true path to happiness lies in understanding the natural world and accepting its laws, rather than trying to manipulate divine forces. Human civilization and progress. In the later books of On the Nature of Things, Lucretius turns to the topic of human civilization and its development. He suggests that early humans lived in a primitive state, governed by their basic instincts for survival. Over time, however, they develop language, agriculture, and social structures, which allowed them to form more complex societies. Lucretius presents this progression as a natural process, driven by necessity and the human capacity for reason. Despite these advances, Lucretius remains skeptical of the idea that progress leads to greater happiness. He argues that as societies become more advanced, people are often consumed by greed, ambition, and the desire for power. These pursuits, in turn, lead to conflict, war, and suffering. For Lucretius, the key to a fulfilling life lies not in material wealth or political power, but in the cultivation of inner peace and the avoidance of unnecessary desires. The influence of Lucretius. Although Lucretius' work was not widely known in the centuries immediately following his death, it experienced a revival during the Renaissance, when scholars rediscovered ancient texts and began to re-evaluate classical philosophy. In 1413, the Italian scholar Poggio Bracciolini uncovered a manuscript of On the Nature of Things in a German monastery, sparking renewed interest in Lucretius' ideas. His materialist philosophy, particularly his rejection of divine intervention, resonated with thinkers of the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, who sought to challenge traditional religious authority and promote scientific inquiry. Lucretius' work also influenced key figures in the development of modern science, including Galileo Galilei and Isaac Newton. His description of a universe governed by natural laws, rather than by the whims of the gods, provided a foundation for the scientific revolution of the 16th and 17th centuries. Today, Lucretius is recognized as one of the most important thinkers of the ancient world, and his work continues to be studied by scholars of philosophy, literature, and science. On the Nature of Things is a remarkable synthesis of poetry and philosophy, offering a vision of the universe that is both materialist and deeply humanistic. Through his exploration of atomic theory, the nature of the soul, and the role of religion in society, Lucretius challenges readers to question their assumptions about the world and to seek happiness through understanding rather than fear. His work remains a powerful testament to the enduring relevance of Epicurean thought and its capacity to inspire intellectual inquiry and personal reflection.